You studied here many years ago.
I did, and I was just thinking before I come on that my grandma moved to Northampton in her later years and remarried and lived there while I was at university as well. So that was great to have her and other members of my family live in Northampton as well. So to hi to all those people out there, the Watsons and the Goldbergs as well out there.
So you do know the local family members. I do know those names. I do. It's it's great having you on. And as today's been, a whole year since George Floyd was killed, and I was kind of wanted to speak to you a little bit about that because, of course, yourself and your family have been, relentless on the commitments of righting the wrongs that happen to people, especially when we're talking racism. How do you think this year has gone, and how did you feel when you saw what happened to George Floyd?
So a year on, I think we are moving forward again, and these issues and topics, I feel at times that we move forward. So after Stephen passed away, there was some fighting, some anguish, some trials and tribulations, and we felt like after McPherson in '99 was moving forward, and in subsequent years things have slowed down, and it almost feels like they've come to a stop. So after the tragic murder of George Floyd, and again, my heart, my condolences, my thoughts, my prayers go out to him and his family, because again, with these incidences, a lot of times, sometimes people forget about those that are left behind and those that have to carry the burden of that going forward now. So, yeah, I think we're moving forward. The conversations are great that we're having. We are moving that forward as well, and it's great to know that the young people are on board and understanding that this is wrong and we need to do better. But it's for us now as adults to ensure that we are not just talking about it, that we're implementing things and differences in our own lives, which then turns into our own families and our own communities. But then also, we've also got to do things at work as well, guys, as well.
What are the conversations? Because I know you're a teacher, you're a mentor, you're out there in the community. We're going to go on a little bit later on to speak about your book. It's interesting, very interesting, by the way. But
Thank you.
what are the type of topics or things are people talking to you about in the communities and your walks of life to do with this whole topic of talking about, speaking out that Black Lives Matters, all lives matter, but Black Lives Matters?
Yeah, again, so Black Lives Matters, and the analogy I like to give to people is it's an emergency at the moment because, again, things haven't moved forward enough for the black race, the black community to feel and to be appreciated for their contribution, their knowledge, their expertise, and what they've done for this country going forward. I think there's part of that needs to be recognised. And then also from young people's perspective as well, there's a sort of conflict going on here in their minds about why is this still going on? Why is there these issues? Because we are told from very young that we should treat other people like how we like to be treated ourselves. We should respect other people. We should be kind to other people. And so when young people see that these things are not happening, and these things are usually caused by adults, they question it. So that's something I get questions a lot. I've also been hearing from young people recently as well about how we move the conversation on. So this is something I really am interested about, and that's why I do try to work with the establishments to try and give them insight of how they can be better. And then by doing that, though, sometimes, like this young lady was saying to me, it's the stigma that's approached by that. And I question everyone all the time, which is, can you imagine if something like what happened to me and my family happened to you or your family? What would you want to happen? And who do you want to help? And obviously they say the police, and they say that whoever who's done it, whoever knows to come forward. Well, that means that in turn, the other way around, that we need to work with the police establishments. We need to understand that they are there to provide a service for us and to protect us. So we've got to ensure that in our own communities that the stigma that's attracted to the police, that somehow we start to have conversations about how we change that. And how that we understand that we have to work with these establishments and hold them to account as well, because, again, I remind everyone all the time that the police service are a public service. That they are supposed to help, guide, and protect us. So we are able to hold them to account. So we just need to make sure that we know and understand these things going forward, and we all work together better, and to ensure that these establishments, these institutions, work to the best that they can.
Mm-hmm. Talking about moving the topic and conversation forward, in our lifetime, when was the last time have you ever seen sort of like not just black or ethnic minorities, but white people, people of all different communities coming together in the way they have to talk about this? I
Yeah.
can't ever remember anything ever happening like this.
100%. And my great aunt, Aunt Lil, who in 1950s married a white gentleman, and she was there for the Brixton riots, and she said to me, Stuart, when the Brixton riots happened, it was about 80% black people, 20% white people. And then she said after Stephen, it felt like the scales had toned a bit more, and it was almost like 60% black people, 40% white people. But if you look at the recent demonstrations, it's completely changed again. Like I say, there's lots more people having a better understanding that there are hidden problems, there are hidden agendas, there are hidden issues that go on for certain types of people from certain communities, and how this is wrong. Because, like I explain to everyone all the time, not that I want to, but no one has a choice about their skin colour, their hair colour, their eye colour before they enter this great world.
I mean, more recently, so do you think that, the passing of the likes of your brother, the passing of George Floyd, do you think it has united communities in some shape or form?
Yeah, I do. Again, like I said, it's moving the agenda forward again. It's allowing people to have conversations and topics that they might not have had, if it never have happened. We're quite good at being blinkered and putting our head in the sand, or only focusing on things that only affect us at times. So, yeah, I definitely feel like it has. But that's what I say. It's not just the conversations. We need to continue the agenda. We need to continue moving forward so that they're not just conversations, they're actionable things that people do and act and behave differently. That's really important because, again, today myself, I'm still receiving, comments and people's opinions about why I shouldn't be able to speak and say what I want to say.
The reason why I kind of led that way is because we've had quite a few peaceful protests on different things recently here in Northampton, and we're seeing more people of different communities, different colours, all coming out to support the cause because something has to be said. People have to stand up. And so I'm thinking in all of this that it has united communities and got people to listen more and to open their eyes as well.
Definitely. And that's what I'm saying. Now with new awakening, though, now with this newfound knowledge, now with this new understanding, we have to act upon it. We have to question things more. And as I said, that happens in our own families and communities, but then also in the workplace as well. This is how we enforce real change, by all of us taking an active part of being different. So it's great to hear that, And as I say to people all the time, the time that I lived in Northampton, I never once felt was approached, had a situation where I thought because of my skin colour, this was an issue or a problem. Never. And I also tell people all the time as well, and all the time that I was there, I was never stopped to search once either in my car. So, as I said, Northampton for me is a very progressive and forward-thinking town, and I just hope that it continues to be that way.
We hope so too. Thank you so much. Wish I could say the same. I think over Christmas I was stopped 2 or 3 times. But
oh wow! So there's some work to be done over there. I'm coming back because again I've spoken a few times to I can't remember the gentleman's name who runs Northampton Police Service, but I have spoken to him a couple of times. So okay, noted. I shall come back and have a conversation again because, as I said. That was never my experience in the time that I was there, so it's a bit strange to hear that maybe some of the London tactics they're now.
Yeah. Well, we are having the stop and search panels. I've been part of that as well, and members of the community have been involved in it. So the dialogue is still going back and forth, and the people are invited to come forward. So yeah, things have moved on a lot since I remember 20 years ago sitting in the studio doing these interviews. I kind of want to move on a little bit about you, Stuart, because I didn't know too much about you. I'd seen you on the TV before. I met your mum a couple of years ago when she came to the University of Northampton, but I didn't know too much about you. So I started doing a bit of groundwork, and then I found out that you'd been a teacher, you'd been mentoring kids, and you've also written a new book.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot to do, especially with everything that was going on with you, the family, and of course trying to put things right that were wrong. What made you want to write your brand new book? Of course, you can tell our listeners the title, and of course, why did you want to write a book?
First of all, I've got to give credit to my mum and my dad. This is the reason why I've been able to, like you said, able to have some sort of normality in life and be able to go through my A levels, my degree, and to get a job and to have some sort of normal life where people don't know by sight who I am, and that's changing slightly now. But again, that's my own personal choice why that's changing. And so, yes, I've got to say that first of all. But yes, my book that I wrote during lockdown is called Silence is Not an Option. You Can Use Your Voice to Change the World. And it was about how, I've had a son myself now. He's now 10. I've seen him develop and grow from the very first moment I held him in my arms, which I can still remember as clear as day, to this 10-year period now. And I've always had knowledge and understanding about children and young people from 11 to 18. Like, that's my specialism area where I've worked the most amount of time. So it's been interesting now to see the first 10 years of that progress and then what that could look like. And then I know and understand now he's coming to the next phase of his life where he's going to be challenged. His core principles of what he's been brought up as who he is, the guiding things that we as parents have told him that are right and wrong are now going to be challenged as he goes into secondary school. And it's whether he's strong enough of character, if he's strong enough of mind to know that the things that we've done to make him a young individual so far are only things to build him up to make the best individual, and hopefully then in turn to help others to be the best individuals themselves. So that was the sort of premise, because at year 7, when children enter secondary school, I always say to people, of all my teaching career and all the teaching year groups I taught, that had to be one of my favourites, because here we are, a young person who has just come from an environment where they are the big I am. They do know everything. Everyone knows who they are. They know how the day works. They have it down to a fine tee now to just do it automatically. And all of a sudden, someone's pulled the rug from underneath their feet. They started at the bottom of the rung again, and somehow now they've got to scale this new ladder that's been placed in front of them. And, I remember myself from going into secondary school and looking up at these big kids thinking, oh my God, they almost look like adults, the oldest kids in the school, and knowing that one day I'll be there myself. So it was about how can I encapsulate some of the gems, some of the bits of knowledge I used to pass on to them to try and enable them to be the best individuals that they can. Because, again, I've seen many a young person start at 11 and now are fully fledged adults working, their own families, themselves. So that's been a beautiful journey, and I just hoped by writing my book I could pass on some of those information myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the book is kind of like written for young people around age 10, but a lot of older people are getting a lot of love from this book as well. A lot of comments that people are saying they've really enjoyed the book because it's something they can have that open discussion and dialogue with their daughter or with their son or
100%.
Great stuff.
And that's what I say. My mum used to always say to me, if two people say the same thing and they don't know each other, then there must be something in it. And that's what I wanted the book to be able to do. I wanted it to be the reinforcement that we need as parents. Again, I'm quite mindful that my son will never ever see me as, the cool hip happening that some of my mentors see me as. I know that's not the type of relationship we're going to have in the beginning part. Because I'm having to tell him things that he doesn't want to do. So until he gets to the point that he understands that, it all comes from a place of love, development, care. That's where it comes from. It's not that I want to try and, rain on his parade or tell him he can't stay up late at night because I can. It's not those things. I want to make him the best version. I want him to take all the faults of myself away and take all the benefits. That's what we try to do as parents. So in that transfer of knowledge and information, sometimes that road is a bit of a difficult, bumpy road, and they don't always see it. So, as I said, it was for me to try and find a way for me to enable us to work together as a team, because that's what it is. I really feel like bringing a young person up, developing into adults as a team, and it happens in primary school quite a lot, the triangle between parent, school and child. That's a really strong triangle. I've seen it myself now through my own son's experience at primary school. But in my opinion, sometimes secondary schools lose a bit of a triangle until we desperately need their help about a behaviour problem, or or only to write home when they do something good. That's when the triangle then comes back into play then. Mm-hmm. So that's where I feel like we could do a bit better.
Yeah, and to kids, your mum, your dad, your mum's Superwoman, and your dad's Superman, and your superhero. And you mentioned who your superhero was in your book.
Yeah, my brother. Because, as I say to people all the time, from writing this book, I didn't, from 93 to 2018, other than 3 months, which I took out of work, I hadn't ever stopped. Really just stopped and taken account and thought and reflected. So when you have that time and that space to be able to do that, you don't realise little things. So, from the age of 5 to 16, we shared a bedroom. He was the last person I spoke to at night. That's a powerful bond to have between someone. And again, if anyone's got siblings and they've shared a room, they know that. That's why, if you come from a super big family, the person that you shared the room with is probably the closest relationship you had, maybe than some of the other siblings that you have. So, yeah, definitely. And he was able to help me, guide me, push me in the principles, the things that he left with me behind, of being my big brother, which, like I said, I tried to pass on to my sister, which I'm now trying to pass on to my son. Mm-hmm.
There's a few tools in the book that you use to share the optimism and resilience in that, and you've used a lot of that in your own life because, as you know, you've done an immense amount of work in campaigning for a fairer world. I mean, one of the most important documents I remember reading when I first started doing these interviews for InspirationFM and the BBC was the Macpherson's report, which was a real big report, which was really instrumental in defining race-hate crimes. And, so how do you feel about the direction in which society is kind of to moving now in terms of racial equality?
Yeah, which is a hard one because there were 70 recommendations from Macpherson, and I'm afraid to say, from that report from 99, not all of them have still been implemented. So when you then get a new report that says, we're no longer institutionally racist, we've cracked the problem, we can move forward, you then have to start to scratch your head and wonder why people would say things like that and behave like that if they're not trying to push the agenda off track onto something else, which is disappointed in places. But again, I'm full of hope and I'm full of optimism always, and I believe that there is some good people fighting the good fight. And what we need to keep on doing is informing, talking, and having a conversation and being open to the dialogue, because I still come across people who have a very closed mindset of not trying to understand anything from my point of view, and as I tell all the people that I do my speeches and talks to all the time, that empathy is one of the highest forms of intelligence, and we all need to take a teaspoon of that every day and try to be more empathetic and understand from others rather than just seeing things from our own point of view.
Mm-hmm. Northampton being a place where you studied and that, this day of activism, obviously it's been put together by a group of people there, the global ethnic majority. I mean, was there anything like that when you was there? Because these seem to be a group of university students that are willing to speak up and talk. Because, in my experience over the years, it's very difficult to talk about when you're in a room and you're a minority to speak about racism and speak about how it's made you feel. But these young people seem to be tackling it in a different way. What do you think?
Again, so there was the African Caribbean Society at university. So we're talking 1998. I started there, and I was the only black kid on my course. I was the only black kid in the sort of graphic department on the whole sort of 3 years of it all. But again, no one ever made me feel like, oh my god, he's a black guy, or I just and the resilience I have, I don't just put down to my parents, but I also put down from coming from London as well, and that was a great thing about it. I think there was, out of the group of about 30. I think we started a class of 40 maybe in the first year, and we ended up at finished at 25. But there was only, I'd say, out of the final 25 kids that finished, I'd say there was 4 or 5 people that came from Northampton. Everyone else was from out of town. But again, like I said, I'm glad to hear that, that the voice and the movement has enabled these young people to stand up and to be counted and to feel, it is their place to champion the cause. And I'm so glad to know that the university is supporting that as well, because that's what it is. It's about the student's voice, isn't it? It's about the student's experience. That's what any great university should be championing and talking about. And as I said, I have nothing but fond memories. I still speak to 2 of my lecturers from university today. I credit them both for enabling me to develop in the 3 years I was there. And again, never once did they look at me or make me feel, and this was all pre-knowing my backstory. It wasn't something that I was coming up and saying, oh, by the way, never gets you. It wasn't never that the case. It was only when situations happened. So as I said, I started in 98, so 99 McPherson, Elephant Castle. I went to LCP. That was my college that I went to. That happened outside. So that was a really shocking experience. And I was out in Prague when some of the headlines dropped. So yeah, it's been a different journey. But as I said, I love and I care, and I will always. I've seen a couple of students there as well to Northampton University from that I taught. So as well. So that's how much I have a love and affinity for the place.
Well, I can feel your love. I can feel your love for Northampton.
I had my stag do here. Seriously, guys, if I'm ever going to get out of London, Northampton may be the place of choice to go out to pasture and to see the rest of my days. I definitely highly consider it.
Yeah.
I would do.
Yeah, that's just going to wrap up finally. Of course, I'm looking at the headlines today. I was looking at the news last night, and of course, a year on from George Floyd, and even when we speak about your brother Stephen, there is still lots of work to be done. There still is a lot of work. You can't just keep silent. People still need to speak up. How do you think members of the community and the wider community can kind of keep this dialogue out in the forefront?
Definitely. For me, I was my champion. I'm trying to get to Bojo. I really am, because I think we're in a brilliant position right now. Okay, we've just left Europe. Okay, we're in a brilliant position where we can say to the world what we are going to be. And wouldn't it be great to say we are an anti-racist country? We do not accept any form of prejudice or persecution to anyone due to their skin colour or their religious background or their sexual orientation, any of the 9 particular characteristics, in fact. Wouldn't that a brilliant thing to say? And what world would then go, wow, I want to go there, I want to go and live there. If that's their stand and point on anything, then I'd like to go and live there. I'd want to go and interact with those people. I'd want to do business with those people over there. That's where I think we could do, and that would then enable everyone to move forward and it not be a thing. Mm-hmm. Because that's, again, what it is. It's just a thing that people say, oh, yeah, George Floyd, Black Lives Matter. It's a thing. It's not a thing. It's a way of life. That's the way it has to be. So to enable it to be a way of life, we all need to say we are anti-racist, we are anti-sexist, we are anti-disabled. All the 9 protected characteristics. Anyone that has a viewpoint or wants to say or behave or treat someone differently because of those things, that person, we all have a problem with that person. Mm-hmm. That person deserves to have education. If that doesn't work, deserves not to be here. They're the type of people I believe should go to prison as well.
Mm. And of course, we saw elements of this after World War II, didn't we? Where the Commonwealth countries and friends of Great Britain and UK came together to form this partnership. But maybe we can do it even better now.
Exactly, because I always question to people, what happened in Germany with the World War II stuff. That's absolutely tragic. But somehow, as a nation of people, when that rhetoric is a totally no-no in any form of life. So they've been able to move forward, and we're how many years on after that now? We're 100 years plus on from that. So it can be done. It does take time, but it can be done, and that's what we need to keep on remembering.
I have an older brother, yeah, and we're still very tight, Stuart, and we used to share a bedroom, and I used to listen to his music. As a matter of fact, when he used to have a cheeky fag, when he used to smoke, I used to inhale his smoke. But I love him so much, and then you lost your older brother. I mean, I'm really sorry of the fact, because we, at the time growing up in Northampton, we knew about racism. We knew about people pulling up in cars and coming out and giving you a good kicking for the colour of your skin. So we knew that, and we'd been in positions where we had lucky escapes. So when we heard the story of Stephen, it was saddened, because we knew that we were probably as close as that nearly happening to us as it did to your brother. And if he was alive today, what do you think he would be doing? I mean, he's probably in heaven now, but, looking down and you saying what great work you do. What do you think he'd be doing?
I do believe he was a man on a mission to be an architect. So the world has missed out on seeing the beauty that he could have created. That's the way I look at things like that.
I bet your mum, she's lovely.
Yeah.
I'm not bet
she
you.
sets the bar high, though. That's the only thing. I keep telling people she sets the bar really high. So that's why, I am trying to just, make her happy, make her proud, first and foremost, but then also just to live up to the legacy as well that she of my mum. So
I haven't met your dad yet.
A task.
I haven't met your dad.
Yeah, well, as I said, he spends a lot of the time of his life in Jamaica. So he's in Jamaica right now. He will be till what we're on now. We're in May, so he's out there for another couple more months. Definitely before we sort out the lockdown stuff. But yeah, he's okay. I tell people my dad's okay.
He's okay. And
he's enjoying the sunshine, which is I wish I could be right now.
Vitamin D, yeah. Now, and for your younger siblings that you've been looking out for, because you become the big brother, innit?
Yeah, it's my younger sister. Yeah, she's good. She is. But again, she doesn't do nothing like this. She's not interested. She just wants to have normality, which is her entitlement.